Today, we're going somewhere most people will never see. We're stepping inside a sealed-off world, a penal psychiatry unit known as Black Site Berlin. This is based on a first-hand account from someone who was there, a place where, once you're in, getting out is next to impossible.
Wow. Just let that sink in for a second. The very bottom of the human hierarchy ladder. That one sentence tells you everything you need to know about the world we're about to explore. It really sets the stakes. So, okay, let's get into it.
So here's how we're going to break this down. We'll start by going inside Black Site Berlin, then meet some of the most violent individuals there. We'll look at what the system itself does to people, the kind of extreme ideas that take root, and some absolutely wild stories of entrapment. And finally, we'll talk about fate and what it really means to be stuck.
All right, first up, inside Black Site Berlin. This is our guided tour. We're about to meet the people who live in this place. And trust me, these aren't just names in a file. These are the faces, some human, some not so much, of a world completely shut off from our own.
Okay, let's start with what the narrator calls the gallery of violence. These are the encounters with some of the facility's most dangerous patients. You know, the ones whose presence just fills the air with tension, where you know anything could happen at any second.
So first up, and brace yourself for this one, is a patient known only as the necrophile. The name tells you pretty much all you need to know about his crime. And inside, his behavior was just as erratic and violent, which, as you're about to see, led to a head-on collision with our narrator.
So here's what went down. It starts with something small, right? The narrator finds the guy started a fire in an ashtray. But before he can even really react, the patient just attacks him with a ceramic mug. Total chaos. The narrator, thankfully, knows some judo and manages to throw him onto a couch to subdue him. But get this, the guy won't give up. He just keeps fighting until the narrator threatens him with isolation. That's the only thing that gets through. And the night ends with this guy just locked in his room, screaming over and over again, "I am a necrophy."
Okay, next up is a guy they call Joker Face. And what a character. You've got these 14 teardrop tattoos, a literal Joker face tattooed on his own face. But here's the twist. He's from a rich Berlin banker family, a total rebellion against his upbringing that ended in murder and random shootings. And the craziest part? He's completely convinced God is waiting to welcome him into heaven. Inside the facility, though, he's just inventory, a lifer, someone who is never, ever getting out.
You know, the danger in a place like this isn't just about getting attacked by another patient. The system itself, the institution, can break you down in ways you can't even imagine. It takes a physical and psychological toll. Let me show you what I mean with this next story.
So, let's talk about the honor killer. This guy actually got out once, but he was brought back for something small, drug use and missing work. After that, he just gave up. He took every single psychotropic drug they gave him, and the cocktail of meds just destroyed his body, leading to some really awful physical problems. But here's the part that really gets me. At one point, he did something truly heroic. He saved a therapist from being stabbed. You'd think that would count for something, right? Nope. In this system, it meant nothing. No benefit, no change in his status. Just nothing. No hope.
This next part is, well, it's a huge paradox. You've got these men who are, as we've established, at the very bottom of the social ladder. Locked away, no power, no status. And yet, what do they cling to? Ideologies of hate and supremacy. It's a look at what happens when derangement meets radical belief.
Get this. The narrator's neighbor in the facility was this neo-Nazi. Apparently, he'd snitched on his old crew, and they did not take it well. They came after him with a baseball bat, nearly 50 swings, and left him for dead. He somehow survived, literally had his skull pieced back together with titanium plates, but his own violence eventually landed him right back in the system.
And if you think that's extreme, his best friend in the facility was on another level. I mean, how radical do you have to be to get kicked out of Germany's main far-right party? This guy was so over the top with his Holocaust denial at official meetings that the party itself expelled him. They were worried he would get them banned. Think about that. He was literally too extreme for the extremists.
And this extremism, it was a family thing. The same guy, the one who was too radical for the party, his crime was stabbing a kebab shop owner with 3 different butcher knives in a racist attack. But his brother? His brother was in there too for crimes that are just unspeakable. I mean, truly horrific. And the hatred ran so deep that the extreme Nazi would sit around fantasizing about how, if he ever got out, the first thing he'd do is murder his own brother for shaming the family. So we've talked about violence from patients, and we've talked about the system breaking you down.
But there's another danger, when the system itself gets turned into a weapon against you. In a place that runs on psych reports and people's testimony, one single lie can completely derail your life and trap you for years.
And this is where we meet the villain of our narrator's story, a guy he calls the giant baby. Picture this, a massive guy, 2 meters tall, 160 kilos, but with the official maturity of a teenager. He played the part of the perfect informant for the staff, but behind their backs, he was using a secret phone to groom minors online, a total manipulator. So, the narrator gets fed up with this guy's behavior and plays a small prank on him. Big mistake. The giant baby goes straight to the staff and tells them an absolute whopper of a lie. He claims the narrator threatened him and a nurse with a knife. It was completely made up, but in a place like that, who were they going to believe? The accusation was the only thing that mattered.
And the consequences of that one lie? They're just staggering. Based on nothing but the word of this guy, the narrator gets thrown into isolation for 5 months. And then 4.5 years of forced medication. Let me say that again. 4.5 years, almost half a decade of punishment, all because of one lie.
So all these stories, the violence, the extremist beliefs, the betrayals, they're all pointing to one final terrifying theme. You can't get out. This last section is all about the finality of fate. It's about what a life sentence really means when you're inside Black Site Berlin.
42. Just look at that number. That's not an age. That's the number of years a man spent locked up in this place. 42 years. And you want to know what he did to get put there? When he was 17, he stole 2 bottles of vodka.
And after all that time, his release was just a transfer to a hospice bed. He had advanced Hep C and died 6 months later. His entire life, from teenager to old man, was spent inside that facility for 2 bottles of vodka.
But what if you actually escape? I mean, really get out? One guy did it. Back in the early 90s, he gave them the slip during a dentist visit, got himself a fake passport, and vanished. He ended up in a slum in Caracas, Venezuela, and lived there free for 4 years. But then 9/11 happened. The whole world changed. Global security tightened up, and one day, Interpol nabbed him at an ATM. And for those 4 years of freedom, he's now labeled a permanent flight risk. He's over 70, and he will die in that facility. No second chances.
And that brings us to the narrator's own take on this. And it's pretty chilling. He says even a successful escape just means you're on the run for the rest of your life. I mean, think about it. In today's world with biometrics, facial recognition, digital everything, getting out is just the beginning. You're living under this constant threat of being found.
Which leads to his own conclusion, and it's a tough one to hear. He basically says that the only way to truly escape, to get out and stay out, is to have powerful friends. You need connections to high-level politics or major organized crime. And since he doesn't have that, he feels completely trapped by his own fate.
So, you have this account, this message in a bottle from a place most of us pretend doesn't exist. And it really makes you wonder, right? In a world where there is no physical escape, what do you have left? What is there to do? Maybe the only freedom you have is to tell your story, to make sure someone, somewhere, knows what happened.